Hello everyone, happy Sunday. We are coming to you live from Bat City Comic Professionals in Bradenton, Florida to talk to you about all of this week's small press and indie comics that released, and it was a huge week. As always, I'm Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to tell you about what my favorites were, and a little bit about every single one of the books, because I honestly, it's like picking a child. I can't really pick favorites, so I bring them all and I tell you about all of them, and hopefully you find your favorites. And while we're doing that, we're going to wind down our weekend by drinking this bottle of wine. I have no idea what it is, except for the fact that it's a Tempranillo, which is my favorite kind of wine, and this was a gift from Dawn, who is one of our amazing volunteers and friends, who is just absolutely incredible and actually fed us some amazing food today, and brought this wine, and they literally said that she picked it because it pairs great with cheese plates, burgers, and pizza and fried rice, which are pretty much all of my favorite foods. So we're going to give it a go. I'm going to taste it really fast. I'm so excited. Yep, tastes like a delicious, wonderful Tempranillo. So it's Vinos Sin Ley, and I actually looked it up, and Vinos Sin Ley is the company that makes this wine, and their thing is it means wine without laws, and their thing is that it's a group of people who are experienced winemakers who just really want to try to create like the best wines in each different type of wine, without any of the rules and regulations of like what a wine is supposed to be. And so they come together a couple times a year, and they kind of talk about like, this is the wine we want to make and this is how we want to do it, and let's do it and see if we can just create the best of that kind of wine. And because it's a Tempranillo, it means that the grapes were grown in either Spain or Portugal. And so this wine is directly sourced from that area, as it has to be in order to be a Tempranillo. And I think they're doing a good job. I'd be curious to see what all their other wines taste like, since that's their whole thing, is they want to create just like the purest form of that type of wine. But this definitely hits all of the bright flavors of those really red fruits, and a little bit of that peppery taste that a Tempranillo is supposed to have. So, yeah, I'm in. I'm usually in. I've never had a Tempranillo that I was like, that was disgusting, though. So, to be fair, it was a high probability that I was going to like it, but we should have more Tempranillos in this world. That's delicious. If I could just drink, so if this could be like Tempranillo down your weekend, it would be a solid weekend every weekend. But luckily, the comics are solid every weekend, and that's the important part. I'm going to slide that over, and I'm going to pull this up so I can share this with the world and let them know that we are live and talking about comic books. There are so many. I am really going to try to not keep you up all night talking about comics, but I love them all, so just know that it's not my fault if I do. And it's a huge week. Yay! I'm sorry. This is like, every once in a while we'll do 2 weeks at one time, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a huge like week because it's 2 weeks. This is the same size as a 2-week comic period without it being from 2 weeks. So buckle up, get comfy, grab your drink, whatever it may be, and get ready to wind down your weekend. Before I jump into the comics, though, just a reminder, we will be closed this Friday, September 29th, because I will be doing a TED Talk. It's just really incredible. I'm very excited and very honored to be a part of the TEDx Bradenton experience, and I'm going to be there. It's from 8 to 3 are when the talks are happening, and then there's some networking and reception afterwards, so like 8 to 5, so we won't be open because obviously Matt will be there. And honestly, so will most of our volunteer staff. So I'm really looking forward to it. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet and you want to go, you can actually buy your tickets. There's an Eventbrite link that's on both my Instagram at Small Press Shann and on the Bat City at Bat City Comic Books Instagram. The link is in there, and you can use actually code Bat City to save 15% off your tickets. Please get them as soon as possible because there was only like 15 tickets left on Friday or Saturday, so there may not be many left, but if you have a chance, now's the chance to come and get to be a part of a TED experience and meet some TED speakers and get to see all kinds of cool stuff. So It's going to be great. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, you can listen to me talk about comic books for the next, hour and a half, and it'll be kind of like the same thing, except way less formal. They won't let me drink wine at a TED Talk. So we are going to jump in because, like I said, there's a million books to talk about this week, and I'm going to kick it off with a fan favorite, which is Something Is Killing the Children, issue 33 from Boom Studios. If you've never read Something Is Killing the Children, get ready because you are eventually going to get a Netflix show with this, and it's going to be your next big Stranger Things level phenomenon that you're going to see. And if you want to get in on that before that happens, grab the books. You've got 6 trade paperbacks, I believe, that are out already. So it's a lot. I understand that. Issue 33, that's whoa, I can't really just jump in right there. And no, you can't. You really do have to go back and read volumes 1 through 6, but you're going to love it and you're going to fly through it because it's so incredible. So if you don't know Something That's Killing the Children, it is the story of a group of people whose job it is to fight monsters that come out to kill children. And we have been following a girl named Erica Slaughter over the last 33 issues who was recruited a long time ago to be one of the people who helps stop these monsters. And the thing about Erica is she's not really a team player. She doesn't want to be a part of this society. She kind of just wants to actually fight the monsters and save the children and not deal with the politics and the bureaucracy that goes into being a part of their organization. And so Erica's kind of gone off on her own and is hunting down some monsters, and you are going to kind of fall into that and jump up. This is not a spoiler because Erica's duplicitite has been around for at least 5 issues now. So that is just a really cool picture.
5 issues.
No, we have. She was in every issue of the last 5 issues. Yes, she has.
Let's pull it up.
Okay, go ahead. I'm she has been around. This is not a new thing. And they have been hunting her down since for the last 5 issues. This Erica copycat killer. And so Erica, though, has not had the encounters with them. And we're going to see if she eventually gets connected to that. And the big thing about Erica Slaughter and the fight that she's in is that the monsters are not the worst thing anymore. It's this society that is coming after her. So you need to jump into this. You need to see these monsters. You need to get into this fight, and you need to uncover this gigantic universe that is coming your way with Something Is Killing the Children. And if you've fallen off, now is a great time to catch up because we're building towards something really big. Up next, we have Saga, issue 66. This is from Image. This is one of the most accessible comic books to all fandoms. If you are a fan of fantasy books, if you're a fan of sci-fi books, if you're a fan of character-driven stories, or you're looking for something that is completely just a great ongoing narrative that you can kind of fall into, this is going to be the one for you. And much like I just have Something That's Killing the Children, obviously we're really far into Saga, but you can get some a major compendium of the first 55 issues and then catch up. And this is the story of a family that has been dealing with, I don't want to show you that those guys are back. But this is a story of a family that's been on the run because a mother and father who fell in love and had a kid are from 2 warring races, and now everybody in the galaxy is basically trying to stop them from being together. And so you've got this Romeo and Juliet story, but what if Romeo and Juliet didn't die at 15? What if they kept going and they had a kid and the world around them continued to fight against them? This is what you're going to get. So we've got Kaya, issue 11 from Image Comics. This is from Wes Craig, who's been on Deadly Class and Gravediggers Union, 2 really big Image books for a long time. And this is one of the most appropriate, all ages book because it stars a young girl named Kaya and her little brother. And Kaya was told when she was very young that she was the chosen one and that she was going to get all this magic. But when they actually ran the test and did a bunch of stuff, turns out Kaya, not the chosen one, but her little brother was. And so now all of their family has been destroyed, and Kaya has been left as the charge to protect her brother and get him to the people who are supposed to train him as the new mage of their village. And this journey has not gone well. Kaya has lost her brother. He has figured out that he himself doesn't necessarily believe that he's magical. Kings of different races are trying to come after them, and this whole time Kaya and her magic arm are doing their best to just protect her brother as best as they can. It's a really great story of siblings protecting each other, siblings coming into their own, a coming of age story of all kinds, and it just has some really cool bright colored art. So if you are looking for a big adventure story, this is definitely the one to jump into. Earthdivers issue 10 from IDW in their original imprint. This is kind of a one-shot almost to the story that's going on. I guess it's going to be like a two-shot, like a duology for it, because this is a break away from our main story for a minute to kind of give us a backstory for the first time of two of our characters and how they kind of get into the story. So this is, if you didn't read Earthdivers from the beginning, this is the story of Native American group of people who realize that that are living in a post-apocalyptic America and are like, the thing that started the destruction of America is when Columbus came. So we need to go back in time and kill Columbus. And they work on that in the first arc, and it doesn't really change anything. And so they're like, okay, maybe we need to go back further. And then they went back into the Ice Age. And now we're kind of jumping to how these people came about knowing that this was something that they could do. And we're learning the ancestral history of the people who are going to be the ones that are fighting this cause later on. And we kind of learn about the history of this cave that they've been using for all of their time jumping. And so this is a great way to kind of just jump in and figure out who these characters are. And kind of learn like what the purpose of this cave is and why we need to go back in time and why we need to protect people, and kind of even how the world fell apart a little bit. This is great. It feels like a nice folklore in the middle of a very big story about kind of saving the world. Changelings, issue 7. This is from Vizier Entertainment, and this is the wrap-up of this story. So for anybody who hasn't read Changelings yet, this is the story of two people who are, in fact, changelings. So one of them is a guy who was born in the demon world and is separated with a girl, or switched with a girl who is from the human world, and so she is raised in the demon world and he is raised in the human world. And this is something that happens over and over again throughout time, and as each of them switch places, they are forced to raise up these different creatures who will bring about totems that will give them the ability to control, one of them the ability to control the world. And is it going to be the person who is filled with the demon spirits who was raised in that dark world even though she was originally human, or is it going to be the boy who came from the demon world but was raised in goodness and light and has become the protector of humanity? This is something that has been an ongoing battle for them, not only in this, but throughout history. And so we see these two come together for the first time, face to face in this issue, and kind of work through not only that moment, but that history and what it means to them. And we kind of see the wrap up of this big adventure and learn that, you know, even though it's wrapping up here, it might not wrap up forever. And so this is absolutely incredible. If you're looking for a story, like a folklore story, like we kind of just talked about with Earthdivers, but you want to find this Indonesian folklore, this is going to be an absolutely great story for you. And as one of two original books from Vizier on their launching point, this is an absolutely great showcase of what they're capable of and what their publishing company is going to do. Again, this is one that is good for teen up, and honestly, like younger readers who enjoy things like Percy Jackson and things like that will probably find this one fascinating as well. But it's definitely a great all ages title that you can share with and read as a family. Immortal Sergeant, issue 9 from Image Comics, and the wrap up of Immortal Sergeant. When this book first came out, I had a subscriber who said, I'm going to pass on it right now because I have too many books on my list, but I have a feeling when you get to the end, you're going to tell me that I missed out and I need to go back and buy all the issues. And I'm just here to say to that person, you're going to go back and you're going to buy all the issues because this ended so incredibly beautifully. This is the story of a very terrible old man. he is racist and sexist and awful, and he's been working as a detective for a very long time. His last name's Sargent, and he is a sergeant, so he's literally Sergeant. And he is at the point of retirement, and they send him, he's supposed to be going to his retirement dinner this week, so his son, who he has a terrible relationship, comes into town, and they are supposed to try to handle each other for just a minute. Well, Sargent is upset because he never solved this one case about a little girl whose body he found hiding in the park, and he's been determined to go after this person his whole life and capture the one, and he knows who it is. And so he's like, you know what, I'm not retiring until I solve this case. And so he kidnaps his own son in the middle of the night and takes him on an adventure to try to figure out if they're going to find this guy and take him out. And he's like, I'm not here to arrest him. I'm going after him, and I'm going to kill him because he shouldn't have hurt a child. And meanwhile, the whole time, this son's like, what about your child that you've been terrible to my whole life? And adventure kind of leads them into self-discovery and into, a discovery of each other. And some very terrible things happen along the way, and some very beautiful things happen at the end of this issue to wrap it up. Absolutely incredible ending for this story. So if you didn't read Immortal Sergeant, or if you fell off, please go back and wrap it up, because that issue 9 was fantastic. Terrror War issue 6, also from Image Comics. This is Ghostbusters for adults. This is the story of a group of people whose job it is to fight off nightmares that have come to life. And they're kind of ransacking the town. And so they've created these units of people who fight the terrors and go out and literally bust ghosts. And our main unit has kind of become the one that, they're not really known for their awesome skills of it, but they also are kind of like the ones who fight it and do whatever they can. Well, in the last couple of issues, they were brought in by the political parties that be, and were told, hey, we need you to help because the entire world is actually being overrun by terrors, and we're not going to be able to save the city without you guys. And so they send them out to fight the terrors in a whole new place, and we find out that the terrors are no longer dissolving when they're defeated, but they're just coming back, and they're coming back stronger. And now this group is stuck in the middle of the city as it's crumbling under the power of these terrors, and they have to figure out if they're going to stand up and fight them, or if they are going to turn and run to keep themselves safe. And who this group is going to be and whether or not they're going to make it out alive is something we're going to discover as the story continues. Roachmill, issue 6 from It's Alive Comics. This is reprints of course, the older story from Roachmill, and bringing that back. And this is a story of a guy who is a exterminator, and an exterminator in this time period is basically somebody who is like a bounty hunter or an assassin and goes after all these people. And it's in a world where bugs are humans and humans are bugs kind of thing. We have giant bugs, and he is half cockroach, half human. And he takes on all these different cases constantly. And in this one, he is hired to exterminate a rooftop vigilante, essentially, who's been coming in and saving people, and the powers that be don't want them to, so they hire him to save this rooftop vigilante. And he finds out that the vigilante has saved a friend of his, and he's like, well, it doesn't really matter because it's my job. I'm responsible for going after them and killing this guy, because that's what I was hired to do. And so he's got a kind of war with himself on, is he going to take out this rooftop vigilante or is he not? We don't know, because this leaves us on a cliffhanger and to be continued moment. So we'll find out in the future what he chooses to do. Or the past, if you go back and find the old issues of Roachmill. Traveling to Mars, issue 8 from Ablaze Comics. This is Eisner nominated Traveling to Mars, I should say. I really thought that this was going to be the end of Traveling to Mars after the last issue. And it's still going, and I think that we should just do that forever, because I love this book so much. But this is the story of a guy who's your lovable loser, and he kind of has nothing going for him. He finds out that he has a terminal cancer, And the Earth is kind of just absolutely destroyed, and the only thing we can do is we can go to Mars and kind of start to terraform it to either get materials to bring back to Earth or to start colonizing Mars. And they, of course, like being America as we are, like all of the companies of capitalist greed are like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to colonize, like we're going to claim Mars for our company, and we're going to have those resources, and the government's going to have to buy them from us. And so he has been hired by one such company to go to Mars on a one-way mission and set up the stuff that they need to claim the world for themselves and kind of start the terraforming that they need done. And so over the last 8 issues, we've seen him on his journey. And now as he arrives to Mars, he is going to, you know, he knows that this is the end of his life. He's like, I've come here to die. I basically only have this much time. And when he gets there, he learns some incredible things about himself and Mars and what's going to happen. We'll find out. Keep going, Mark Russell. Just write it forever. Monarch, issue 6 from Image Comics. This is the wrap-up of Monarch. This is the newest story from Rodney Barnes, who did Philadelphia. And it is the story of a young boy who is in an orphan, like a foster home, and he's made all these friends, and he's having a great life, and he walks outside in the very beginning of the very first issue, and we find out that aliens have invaded the planet, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of just how it's going, like, we don't know what's going to happen, we're all really worried about it. Well, come to find out, in that same first issue, we learn that he is, in fact, an alien, and he's supposed to be there learning about Earth so that they can take over because their planet's been destroyed and they need to find a new home planet for themselves. And he doesn't want to do any of the responsibilities that have been assigned to him anymore because he's now fallen in love with, you know, a girl and loves his life on Earth and all of his friends. And so over the last 6 issues, he's kind of tried to war with himself over whether or not that's what he wants to do, and you know, maybe go to war with his own people and show like that value of humanity and the people that he loves. It's been a really great story. If you didn't read it, again, now it's wrapped up, so you can take out the whole thing at one time and kind of binge it. The Forged, issue 4 from Image Comics. This is such a cool story. If you did not read it, I love every single issue comes in this prestige format, including the trade paperback, which I believe we already sold this week. But this is the trade came out before issue 4? Yeah, I think issues 1 through 3 had a trade. Because there was a big break point. I thought there was a trade this week. I could be imagining it. Now I could have just ordered it this week. Who knows? Anyway, this is the story of a group of people who are all female soldiers in a like futuristic world, and they are called the Forged because they were forged specifically to do the Empress's bidding. And they are sent to recover a document, like a black box on a ship that crashed that had one of the Empress's Cassandras, which are her oracles essentially. And they go to recover this, and they have an alien encounter, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. And now they, at this point, have been brought in to talk to the Empress about everything that went down on that mission, and to restore the Cassandra to her that they were able to save. And we learn a lot about the politics of what's going on in the city, like who the Empress really is. We kind of see her secret hand of people who are trying to manipulate the government behind her back. So much stuff going on, and we kind of see a little bit of the personalities of our different members of the Forged team as they get this little bit of time to themselves and kind of detox a little bit, or actually intox, I should say. And then we see what's going on with the Cassandras and the setup for a really, really big future of a story. This was actually a huge issue. I got to where I would have assumed that the end of the issue was going to be, and I was only halfway through. So there's definitely 2 issues worth of content in here. It's ginormous, and I love it. And Greg Rucka is always just one of my favorite, like, adventure story kind of writers, and he's nailing it once again with this. And the oversized format, just the only way you could do that with that prestige fit. In Hell We Fight, issue 4 from Image Comics. This is the story of a bunch of kids who are having their own like Goonie style experience, except the thing about them is that they're all dead and living in hell, or they're demons, depending on which kids we're talking about. But in the very first issue, they are trying to find a way to cure their boredom because every day in hell is boring and the same. And so they end up deciding that they're going to steal an ice cream truck from some demons that are passing by. And when they do, in fact, steal this ice cream truck, they find out that there is an angel in the back of it. And they're like, oh, man, we probably messed up and we shouldn't have got this. But she's like, hey, can you guys help me? And they're like, well, I mean, what else are we doing? And so now these kids are all on their own adventure, getting to learn a little bit about this angel. We're getting to learn a little bit more about each one of them and what it's like living in hell. And we are going to see if this ragtag group of dead teens can actually make it to help this angel to where she needs to go. It's a lot of fun, and the art's so crazy that it really works for building these weird hellscapes. So if you haven't read it yet, you're only 4 issues in, so I recommend you jump on now. Sins of the Salton Sea, issue 4 of 5 from AWA. This is the story of a group of people who are basically hired, like you know, I'm on my last job kind of guy. It's a brother comes to a brother and says, hey, I need to do one more job. I know you're out of the business, but why don't you help me with this last job, and then I'll be out of the business too. Well, that one job ends up going completely and totally wrong, and the brother who was out is now charged with protecting a young kid who he just knows that he's got to stay away from his dad or the dad is going to kill him. He doesn't necessarily know why, but he kind of feels like there's a cult-like environment going on, and he wants to make sure that this kid doesn't get dragged back into it. Meanwhile, this cult of people is definitely coming after them, and in this issue, we finally learn what exactly the cult of the Sins of the Salton Sea are, what they're after, and why this kid is so important to them. So honestly, great spy thriller story with a little bit of that like AWA blending supernatural into everyday like regular adventure stories. So check it out. We Wicked Ones, issue 4 from Scout Comics. This is kind of if you took a spy thriller and mixed it with Greg Rucka and Nicholas Scott's Black Magic, which is like a police drama, if you mix that with a little bit more of a spy supernatural, or not supernatural, a superpowered story. This is a future where witchcraft barely is hanging on. We've killed a lot of the witches, and so magic is kind of not really something that exists in our world as much, and so witches are constantly trying to share and impart magic on each other. And they've had witch hunts all over again, and we have superpowered people, and they are like, oh, witches are bad still. And so one girl has been working as an assassin for a lot of people in the government, and she just happens to be a witch, and they need somebody to use as a martyr, and so they start trying to take her out. But unfortunately, it's not her that they get, it is her best friend, and so now they are kind of dealing with who's going to go after who and who's going to get there first, as all of these people start teaming up, and magic and powered people and the government are all going to go to war against each other in this crazy awesome series. I'm taking another drink because this is delicious. What are you making a face for? Okay. You've Been Canceled, issue 4 from Madcave. This is also the wrap-up of this series. This is the story of a man who works as a bounty hunter in a world where when you're canceled on the internet, you're like canceled in real life. Like they send out assassins to come and kill you. And so he is hired to do that, and he's the best at that job. And in issue 1, we find out that he is going to be canceled himself, and so he has to figure out how to go against all these people. Well, he also runs into a young kid, and that kid is like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but the world that you've been fighting for is actually not anything that you thought it was. And of course, corporate people and the government are secretly running all of this, and you've been a part of their scheme this whole time. And so they've kind of teamed up over the last few issues and have been trying to figure out how to piece this all together and take everybody down. And we've got a big action-packed fight to the death coming our way, and You've Been Canceled, issue 4. Wilds End, issue 4 of 6 from Boom Studios. This is the story of War of the Worlds, if it was told by animals. This is a bunch of fishermen go off to sea, and when they come back, everybody else is missing, and they find out that they have all been kidnapped by a bunch of lanterns, and these lanterns are controlling them and making them build some kind of weird, unique structure for them. We don't really know yet. We're still piecing it all together. We're struggling with them to figure it out, but we know that if you get caught by the hum of the lights or the light itself, that you will in fact fall victim to whatever it is that these lantern alien type creatures are planning. And so the random group of fishermen have now teamed up together and are trying to figure out how to save their village, their friends, and their loved ones before it's too late. Really, if you love War of the Worlds, this is it. All right, Matt, close your eyes. Don't look. Pop-Up issue 4 from Blood Moon Comics. This is the end of Pop-Up. So I'm not really going to show you much of anything, and I'm definitely not going to tell you anything about the last half of this book. But this is about a woman who decides she wants to open a museum of all of the deadliest artifacts in the world, essentially. Anything that's ever been a part of a murder mystery or a haunting or a horror. She decides to bring it all together. And as you can imagine, if you put a bunch of things from horrific places and murderous experiences together, you're gonna get some dangerous, creepy, dark stuff happening. And in fact, that does unfold immediately in issue 1, and now the museum is alive and coming for all of them. And I'm not going to tell you anything else because it wraps up in this issue and you got to figure out what happens yourself. But you should read it because it's crazy and cool, and it's only 4 issues. So Tenement, issue 4 from Image, and this is part of your Bone Orchard mythos from Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Doesn't connect to anything necessarily. It's just those two creating essentially an imprint of all of their horror works that they put together. This is the story of a group of residents in an apartment building who one day find themselves sucked into a vortex, essentially, of darkness. And now these 10 residents are trying to figure out how they can get out of the building. But the further into the building they go to try to find their way out, the more dark, demented stuff comes their way. And we don't know if they're going to make it, but the only person that can kind of serve as a guide is a little boy who's like 7 years old, who has more thought and more trust in what they're seeing than anybody else does. And whether or not he's going to lead them to safety or lead them to their deaths is going to be what we discover as the levels of the tenement unfold before us. You Till The End, issue 4 from Image and their Top Cow imprint. This is the story of a guy who is determined to believe that there's something after death. And as the world is coming to an end because of climate change, he's like, I have to prove that there's an afterlife and a place for us to go. And so he has hired a bunch of people to go to an island that is pretty much next in line to be destroyed by the earth taking itself back. And so these people are now on this island, and there is some ghostly, crazy things that are going down on this island, and people are starting to believe because of all of the terrible things that are happening. But not only are they starting to believe, but they're starting to disappear, and weird, crazy things are happening. And who's going to make it and who isn't is the question of the day, and you're going to find it all haunting you through Andrea Moody's insanely dark, creepy art that just perfectly accentuates the story. So if you're looking for something to fill like that bunny mask void with Andrea Moody's art, this is another great horror from him. Blacksmith, Key to Your Heart, issue 4 from Ahoy Comics. Essentially, it's Blacksmith Volume 2. This is the story of a woman who is a detective and a private investigator, and she's also just happens to be a werewolf. And her partner is a djinn or a genie, and the two of them have been investigating different supernatural and paranormal murders. And in this particular run on the whole thing, she has been kind of investigating a murder mystery. Not a murder mystery. She's been investigating domestic disturbance that seems to be escalating very quickly. And as they do more and more research, they find out there's more to the story than they have been prepared to take on, especially because it's going to hit a lot closer to home than either one of them are prepared for. Meanwhile, they also have hired an intern who is a young girl who needs to be kept safe because of her own demonic powers that lie within her. And as often with teenage girls, this girl has gone off on her own and is trying to make decisions, and the decisions she makes are never good for anybody, and we're going to see the ramifications of everybody's decisions, not only by the time you get to this book, but as we go on as the story unfolds. Click, click, boom, issue 4 from Image Comics. This is one of my favorite books right now. I absolutely love it. This is the story of a young girl who was raised by her grandfather. And her grandfather was an ex-military person who ended up using his services to begin helping with people who are trying to, you know, like getting involved with like drug lords and things. And he's kind of working as the hitman for them. And now they've all come after him and kind of laid claim to like taking him back. And as he is murdered before the series begins, we find out that she is on her own revenge mission. And the thing about this girl is that she doesn't speak, and so she uses Polaroid pictures to kind of explain what it is she's trying to say. And so she's leaving these visual messages behind everywhere she goes. At the same time, a young journalist finds this fascinating, and so she decides that she is going to investigate this mission for her, like, and get that story and get the scoop. And now she's completely wrapped up in the whole story, and we're gonna see how these two work out their connection and how they're able to wrap it all up, because I believe the next issue is the last one for this story, and I'm not very excited about it because I love those characters so much. Still Siege, issue 3 from Battle Quest Comics, and I believe this is the end at least of this arc. This is possibly the whole thing. This is the story of a world where we are in battles for mech. We are in battles against like corruption and a wrong future and dystopia, and we basically use mech suits to do a lot of this fighting. And a girl who looks like she's a teenager but keeps telling us she's much older than that is like, I am the only person who can stop this. I am the key to saving everything. And nobody believes her. Except for one guy who's like, look, I don't even know if any of this is true, but if it gets you to, you know, go where you want to go and get out of my hair, I'll help you out. You know, he's got that rugged guy thing. And so over the last 3 issues, they have been working together to fight this war. And we see in this issue the outcome of their battling together and whether or not they are able to save the day. So if you are into that mech suit battles, if you're looking forward to something like Transformers and you want to like get, you know, excited with some mech wars, this is also a great way to jump into that and support another small press. Queen of Swords, issue 3 from Vault Comics. This is a part of your barbaric universe. This is also the wrap-up of this volume of this story. And this takes some of our characters from the barbaric lore, a lot of the female characters that have been side characters, and gives them their own story. And we have been following Sarah, who is another one of the witches, and she's been connected to Soren, who's our necromancer from the main barbaric story, for a long time. And she kind of double-crossed Soren when they were younger. And we learn as readers in this story why she did that and what her connection is to the darkness that everybody has been fighting in all of the barbaric world. And so she and her 2 barbarians, as it were, that have been helping her along the way, kind of face off against a bunch of wizards and witches and dark entities and orcs over the course of this 3-issue series. And they are now coming together to wrap it up and see if we can get us back connected to the world of barbaric and where we need to go to help save Owen and Soren in the barbaric main story. You could read this if you had not read barbaric, and you would be fine. Your experience is enhanced if you do read barbaric, though, so you should, and you should. Scrapper, issue 3 from Image Comics. For all my dog lovers, this is definitely a book for you. If you love stray dogs as your dog horror, this is your dog action adventure. It's kind of like Bolt for adults. This is the story of Scrapper, who has been genetically engineered to have superpowers by a lab, but turns out most of them are all in like this collar that he has. And so he has been raised on the streets and always is kind of seen as the protector of animals on the street, and he's adopted his own humans, and in issue 1 something happens to his humans and he's like, I'm going after the people that are going after my people. And that just happens to be the government organization, the pharmaceutical company, whatever it is, that created him. And so he has teamed up with some other animals on the street, some who have been also mistreated by this organization, which is literally called Smite. And they are going to all go after them together and seize their opportunity to take down Smite from the outside, as vengeance would lead them to do. Seriously, it's Bolt for adults. If you enjoyed that movie, you've got to jump in on that. I'm going to take another drink of this Vinos Sin Ley. Good. All right. We've got The Edge from Comicsburg, issue 3. This is the story of a group of people who are all superpowered, and one man who's kind of created a lot of those superpowered beings, and his ultimate plan to destroy a lot of the world and a lot of the people. And in this particular issue, we've seen one guy who's like, he's captured and you think he's in danger, but we saw over the last couple issues that this was kind of his own plan, and we see how that plan comes into play and how it works out for him in this issue. But we also see a little bit more about each of the characters and where they fall, and we learn about a lot of characters who have been mistreated by this organization before and how they're going to come into the battle. So we're basically setting up a big giant war between superpowered people, and if you enjoyed 90s comics, this definitely has a feel of a lot of those superheroes that we saw in that time period, and how those big adventure moments would come out to play for them. Savage Squad, issue 3 from Dark Horse Comics, and this is also the wrap-up of this. And speaking of 90s comics, this is like if you put all of the 90s comics, but you made it with an all-female cast, and they weren't in ridiculous costumes. This is about a group of girls who are a savage squad, and they are going out to fight some people, and they are trying to recover an operative, like they're on an operation to kind of recover some black box information. And when they get there, they find out that this place in Chernobyl is kind of overrun by different massive wolves, and they have to stand against them. And we see each of these girls kind of take on the different parts of the battle and all the different world that they are going to do, and we see these giant wolves come out to play, and it is crazy. So check it out. Panya, the Mummy's Curse, issue 3 from Dark Horse and the Hellboy universe. This is another one of those Hellboy books that if you haven't read Hellboy, doesn't really matter. Like, Hellboy's not in it. It doesn't seem to impact the story too much. But this is about a girl who feels like she's got a connection to the spirits of the gods in ancient Egypt, and she is trying to tap into that so that she could possibly save her people. And as she does that, she gets told she needs to go on a mission that will lead her across the country and to different places. And as she does, she kind of has a conversation with different people about, like, this is what I'm looking for and this is where I'm heading, and nobody seems to know what she's talking about. And yet she continues on her journey, hoping that at some point she's going to find what it is that can save her people and lead her to this power that is lying within her. So again, if you haven't read the Hellboy universe, this is one of those great outlying books that I think you can jump in on and just get a really cool story all your own. The Lonesome Hunters, The Wolf Child, issue 3 from Dark Horse Comics. This is essentially volume 2 of The Lonesome Hunters. And if you didn't read volume 1, it is about a boy who is given a sword that can destroy demons, and he is like, I don't want this responsibility, but he also doesn't want it to fall into the hands of his cult-like father. And so he takes the sword, and he is now an old man at the beginning of issue 1 of the first volume, and is still protecting that sword and trying to keep it out of the wrong hands. And in that first volume, he meets a young girl who is the first person who kind of sees everything he sees and understands everything he understands. And they have been on this mission now together to stay away from the cult that is after him, but also to stop the demons that are breaking into our world, and to stop people from just being awful. And the combination of the old man and the really young kid always makes for a really great story, and this is another one of those where two people are trying to connect to each other and really figure themselves out. Sirens of the City, issue 3 from Boom Studios. This is kind of Boom's next big story that they're really pushing a lot, and I can see why. I love the use of black and white with splash color in this book to show off the magics. But this is the story of a young girl who finds herself thrown out of her house because she believes it's because she's a teenager and she's pregnant and she's on the street. But there's also seems to be this underlying fear of what she can do. And she doesn't understand what anybody means by that. She doesn't realize that she has these magical powers at the very beginning of issue 1. But we do, and we learn all about the underworld, which is, in fact, filled with all kinds of magical creatures. And so we get this huge urban fantasy that takes place in New York City and brings us werewolves and vampires and sirens and all kinds of other mythical creatures who are just living in the city. And she is slowly dragged into a war between all of them, that she is the core piece of whether or not we can build this future that we need to build. So if you are a big fan of urban fantasy novels or anything young adult fantasy, really, you're going to absolutely love this book because it's building out a great big world for that. Con and On, issue 3 from Ahoy Comics. This is, honestly, it's like unnamed retellings of people's experience trying to get into the comic book industry. And it takes us into different points in time in Comic-Con history, and just kind of shows us a little bit about like what it's like to be somebody trying to break into the industry who goes to these cons. And it's been following 2 kids who went to their first con together, and one of them was automatically given opportunity because he was a young white kid who was obsessed with the creators that he was meeting, and the other one was kind of pushed down because she is a female and a woman of color. And now they're kind of at different points in their career, and we're still seeing, you know, who's going to get opportunities and how are those opportunities presented. And we learn a lot about BarCon in this issue, which if you don't know, is kind of like when the creators and the industry people hang out at the bars around conventions, and some of the things that have been known to happen. And they do touch on a lot of the really darker side of convention and industry life in this particular issue. But if you are somebody who goes to Comic-Cons, if you're somebody who has been around the comic book industry a long time, this is kind of like an undercover expose, but also like gives you some of the really good feelings at the same time of that industry experience. Big Game issue 3 from Image Comics and Mark Millar. This is Mark Millar. Mark Millar's nemesis kills the Mark Millar universe. Essentially is what it is. They have set up every single character from every single Mark Millar book, whether that's Kick-Ass or Kingsman or the Jupiter's Legacy or the Magic Order or you know, Nemesis or the Nightclub, anything that you've ever seen from Mark Millar, they're all going to make an appearance in this book. And essentially that Nemesis has been hired by all of the supervillains to go after anybody who has ever been considered a hero in this world and take them out. And they are working really, really hard to do just that. And we are seeing these heroes try to fight back. And we're going to see what happens. And who's going to make it and who's not going to make it. And you're going to see all your favorite characters appear, and hopefully your favorite characters are some that make it out. But if you are a fan of Mark Millar in any way, I think you need to check out this series and see your favorite characters come back to the big moment in the big game. Antarctica issue 3 from Image Comics and Top Cow. This is the story of a girl whose father was a researcher, at least that's what she believed, and he was working researching things for science, specifically in Antarctica, and she's always kind of wanted to try to figure out like what happened. And so she's worked her way into a position where she could be sent to this mission in Antarctica. And when she arrives there in issue 1, not only is it cold and dark and dangerous, but she finds out that there is something mysterious going on that is bringing a another world to our world that is leading us down a very dark path. And so now they are trapped in Antarctica, dealing with whatever it is that's coming out and after them from this world around them. And honestly, like, if I was going to be trapped anywhere in this world and having to deal with something, Antarctica is definitely not the place I'd want to do it, because it's already cold and dark and scary on its own, and it's completely isolated. So it's insane that this is what she's dealing with. Omega Gang, issue 2 from Scout Comics. This is kind of about kids, a bunch of kids getting their own Pokemon. This is some teenagers who are like, summer's boring, like, we're never going to have any fun. And then these little alien pocket monsters show up, and they take them in, and they're like, hey, now we all have like our own little totem kit, and let's use them to save the day. And at the end of issue 1, they all seem like they're gonna kind of be friends and have fun, and things are going to be okay. But in issue 2, we start to see each of them fall apart for different reasons, and we kind of specifically are mostly focused on one of the girls in this issue who's being harassed by a teacher at school, and what she's going to do about that. And we kind of see how these little pocket monsters can come into play when they are in need of some help. So it is teen plus, because the topics that they talk about are very intense, and some of the things that they say are more on the adult side. But they do have the like fuzzy little creatures, so I feel like it's important to say, like, even though they have fuzzy little pocket monsters, they're definitely more of a teen book for sure, a teen plus book for sure. Project Rice, issue 2 from Madcave. This is the story of a group of people who have heard about a subterranean world that was kind of built during the Nazi era, and they are determined to get down there and figure out what it was that was going on, like what those experiments are. There's this like mysterious train track that was supposed to have taken all of the gold that the Nazi regime had, and it disappeared, and nobody ever knows where it went. And so they're like, I think it went down here, and so they're investigating it. They're kind of like part Indiana Jones. I mean, I guess it really is kind of entirely Indiana Jones, because they're trying to find a mysterious treasure, and they're fighting Nazis in the process. So very much like that, but a lot darker and a lot scarier than your average Indiana Jones book, because there is some things that may be lurking down here we still don't know. It just has that like creepy, eerie feeling on every page that you turn. So something is going to come for us, I feel like, as we go further and further into this, and the people chasing after them are bad enough, but who knows what else is lurking beneath the world that they have uncovered down in this mysterious city. Side Quest issue 2 from Scout Comics. This is what if your D&D life became an option for you to use in real life. It is all about a guy who's not very happy with the life that he has. He's not very good at, his job. His wife is always nagging him about something. He feels like he can't be there for his kids in the way he wants. And so whenever he checks out of real life, he checks into this fictional world, and he works as just a member of a gang of people who are going through questers, I guess you would say, and they are all working to stop different things. Like, they literally get an assignment, and they're like, oh, we've got to go, save this hammer, or we've got to go stop these dragons from getting out. And so he seems to really enjoy that life, and he kind of lives it. And so is it an allegory for the imaginary worlds and the way that we live in our fictional spaces when we don't feel happy with the life that we have? Or is it going to be that he actually is in another world? Who knows? We're only 2 issues in. We'll find out. But if you ever wanted your worlds to be real and to be able to go into the imaginary world, that's going to be a good one to feel what that's like. Hades, issue 2 from Dynamite's Disney Villain imprint. This is honestly perfectly Hades. If you like the Hercules movie, you need to pick up this comic, because it has everything you need for the story. You honestly should read it in James Wood's voice and everything. But in this, we are right before anything. He hasn't gone after Hercules yet, and this is Hades trying to build a team of people who can help him take down, get the Golden Fleece, and they're trying to get it before Jason and the Argonauts can get it, or the bro Jason as he was, which is totally perfect and exactly how I imagined Jason in my head. You get all the laughs, you get, you know, pain and panic, you get Hades being ridiculous. It feels exactly like you're watching the Hercules movie if they had made more than one movie of it. So seriously, if you're fans of that movie, get this. So far, this is a continuing story. The Disney villain ones aren't like the Darkwing Duck where it's episodic. These are like one full story. And so, you know, you need to read issue 1 to read issue 2 of Hades. Killer Queens, Volume 2, Issue 2 from Dark Horse. Killer Queens is the story of a partnership of people who are assassins who work in space. And there's a team of people who have just gone on all of the like most crazy adventures. And we find the two back in action in this issue. And they're trying to just go about their lives. And they end up getting a call that a person has escaped from a planet and there's a bounty on them, and we find out that there is a connection between the person with the bounty on their head and our team. And so now they are working once again to do the right thing instead of the thing that will give them the most money, which is of course what they're usually after. And so we're gonna see how this hilarious group of people come together to make some great decisions. If you haven't read Killer Queens before, it is absolutely hilarious. The tagline is putting the sass in assassins. It tells you everything you need to know about this book. You absolutely, if you like comedy and you like pulp science fiction, like this is the perfect blend of those two things. The Madness, issue 2 from AWA. This is about a woman who has superpowers and has been using them, you know, somewhat for personal gain and not really like the most like honorable ways. But she's like, hey, I'm going to do this last job and then I'm going to retire, because she's met a man and they have kids and they're going to live, you know, she wants to live happily and peacefully ever after. And in issue 1, we find out that the government is very against superpowered people and they don't want her to have any of those things. And some stuff happens and she awakens a piece of her that has been dormant for a very long time. And in issue 2, we jump back to her past and we see what that piece of her is and where it came from and how it comes to play in big ways in her life. And we kind of see what this madness that lies beneath is and how it's going to affect the rest of the story. It's crazy, it's wild, and I really just want to see her burn the world to the ground. The Case of the Bleeding Wall, issue 1 from Dead Sky Comics. This is about a woman who has the ability to kind of demon hunt. She's you know, in the very beginning, she's talking about a book she wrote about the way she captures demons, and she's talking about how she has this like Coke bottle technique that she can put a demon or a djinn or something into a bottle and keep them from attacking people. And in the process, she meets this young girl who really wants her to kind of take her under her wing because she swears that she can see all these things. And she's like, you know what? My assistant's out sick this week. Why don't you come with me? And so they go to Italy and they are taking on a case. And the person who is showing them the place that they are supposed to be investigating is like, look, I can only show you when the sun's up because I refuse to go to this building at night, and you're lucky that I'm going to go at all, and I don't really want to go into it. And they're like, it can't be that bad. And then they get there and we get just a couple of teasers about what this place is going to contain that's going to show us where this mystery is going to lead us. So if you like horror and you like mysteries, this is a great blend of the two of those things together. And from Dead Sky, which we don't talk about very often. Hexagon Bridge, issue 1 from Image Comics. This is an all-new story all about a world that we have discovered. Basically, we have found that there's a bridge from us to another world, and we send cartographers off to this other world to try to figure out what's there and send back a map. But they go off in 2 different directions, and the 2 different cartographers both end up having very, very, very strange experiences, and we kind of lose touch with both of them, except for through a young girl who has the ability to dream the future. And she is telling us what is happening to these cartographers and what we need to do to possibly find them and get across that bridge, so to speak. And we learn what their connections are to each other and to this world. And we learn what's kind of is coming from our world and our universe, and why we're so interested in that other world very quickly in this book. So if you're looking for a book that's got a lot of that world building, it kind of feels almost interstellar-like, this is going to be a great one. Kid Slapshot versus the Lunatic. This is a one-shot that is also the wrap-up of the Kid Slapshot universe, essentially, from Keenspot. This is, Kid Slapshot is kind of your Silver Surfer meets Deadpool child character who really wants himself to be just called Slapshot. And he fights a guy called the Looky Loo, who is essentially just the Watcher, in the most obvious parody book that you'll ever see in your life. And over the last few one-shots, we've seen the different ways that they have fought together against each other. And now, as the Looky Loo is getting in trouble for all of his work from Mr. Universe, Kid Slapshot decides maybe he doesn't hate the Looky Loo, and maybe, maybe he's not so bad. And so they kind of team up to figure out how he can help the Looky Loo out and keep him from getting in trouble, and what world they might be able to build together. So again, very hilarious parody, which is what Keenspot's really known for. But if you are a fan of Marvel Comics and you want just a fun parody version of it, this is definitely going to be a great way to get that. Acolyte, issue 1 from Concrete Comics. This is a publisher we've never had before, and obviously an all-new story, and it is about a young boy who kind of feels that typical, like, I don't feel like the world understands me, I don't really know if, who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing, and he kind of gets, it's Acolyte with a K. Right. Yeah. Concrete with a K. Yeah. Yeah. But this is, he's like, I don't really feel like the world understands me, and specifically because of different ways that he's treated because of his race. And in the very beginning, he is hanging out with his little sister and just kind of playing with her on the basketball court, and something happens with them and kind of changes the direction of the course of his life. And so now he is training to take on these powers and kind of become this hero. And he's not really, he's kind of hot-headed. He's kind of not really in the place he needs to be to take it on, but he knows that he needs to become the person that they want him to be if he's going to live up to expectations he's kind of placing on himself, but also so is the world around him. I have a feeling this is going to be a really great superhero book in that same vein as things like Radiant Black, where we get that alternative to the superhero world. And we just see them use it in a really great way to commentate on what's going on in our society, as well as in people's minds towards different things that they experience in their life. And I'm really excited to see where this one goes. So if you didn't grab issue 1 of Acolyte, now's the time to do it. Madam Satan, Hell on Earth, issue 1, because it's a one-shot, as part of the Chilling Adventures. Except what's crazy about this is it does tell us to be continued, and they always do this with these Chilling Adventures, and then you never really know if they are continued. So I hope we do get some more of this. But this is kind of spins out of the Sabrina Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. If you've read that, Madam Satan is a really big character in that story, and we see her in here still kind of mad about all of the fallout of what happened in there and what's happened in a couple of her one-shots that have come about since then. And so she is determined to kind of go to war against hell, and the demons that are pushing against her in this different place. And she's now on Earth, and she's trying to figure out who she can turn to for some assistance. And of course, the only person that can really help you in a situation like this when Sabrina is not available is the newest character that Archie Comics is pushing a lot, which is Jinx, who is, of course, the daughter of the devil. And so we are going to see whether or not these two can team up together and figure out how to stop this demonic ruining of her life. Greenhorns, issue 1 from Keenspot. This is not a parody. We've been getting a lot more stories from Keenspot that are actual, just like original stories that aren't very parody, like that are not parodies at all. And so this is the story of a family that the group of kids and their parents have been, are no longer with us for whatever reason, and they're sent to go live with their uncle in the West, and they've lived in the city their whole lives, and so they've always had, rich experiences with cars and modern technology, and now they're forced to go live in this old West town, and they absolutely hate it. And when they get there, their uncle is very strange and is not prompt, and he's not proper, and they're not sure why he is the way he is, and they just don't really like it. And they find that there's some weird things about their uncle, and they kind of start doing their own investigations, and these kids kind of find that there's more to this town that they know about than they know about, and there's more to their uncle, and we are going to discover what that is as we continue along the Greenhorn story. But if you want like a Narnia meets horror, this is kind of in the Old West. This is kind of going to give you a little bit of that, because you do have these kids working together. Something completely not scary. The Blackout Bombshell, issue 1 from Sumerian. This is a comedy of all sorts. This is about a man who is a private investigator, and we open up the book with him in a taxi cab, and he has no idea how he got in this cab because he is super blackout drunk. And the cab driver's like, I'm dropping you off, and here's your paperwork for the case that you agreed to. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so he goes into his office, opens his paperwork, and finds out that it's a job to find a woman. And then in walks the woman. And he's like, man, I am a great investigator. I have already solved the puzzle. And as you can see, that's like page 2. So he's like, I don't know where this is going, but I found this woman. And, that's not the case. And we have to go on like a reverse detective story and kind of solve the mystery of what he agreed to, instead of solving the mystery itself. And we walk through his drunken escapades from the night before and all the other nights around it, and he's trying to piece things back together again, but he is like the most apathetic investigator that you could ever imagine. He's like Sam Bradley from DC Comics, if Sam Bradley was even was absolutely incredibly terrible at his job in all capacities. So if you like detective stories, but you kind of like want to laugh, like if you were a fan of Superb Spy, but you like the more noir kind of detective story, this is a Superb Spy meets a detective story in the noir fashion. But he's ridiculous, and it's hilarious, and I laughed out loud a lot. The Left Hand Path from Dead Sky. This is a one-shot. And this is a crazy story that I read 3 times, because there's so much to it. And I think everybody I sold it to this week, I was like, please take your time on this book, because there's so much to it. This is a story about a race of people who find a spaceship, essentially, that lands in front of them. And they're like, oh, we're going to send some people in to kind of see what's going on in the ship and what we can find from it and whether or not there's any survivors. And then it's like, okay, 20 years later, we're still going into this ship. And then it's like 100 years after that, and 50 years after that, and 1,000 years after that. And it just keeps climbing and climbing in numbers as these people just continuously try to get through this spaceship and try to learn like what is going on. And the ground is changing, the walls are changing, suddenly whole ecosystems are in there, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And these people just find themselves more and more lost in the concept of trying to get through without ever actually getting anywhere. And it's kind of just feels like a big giant allegory for being stuck in the daily grind and not appreciating the things that we have as we push forward to that. And it even says wonder, steadfastness, resilience, curiosity, apathy, confusion, fear, cruelty, paranoia, self-doubt, madness. These are all the things that we get from this experience. And it's yes, we know from page 1, they're I am never going to get out of this, and we are never going to resolve this situation. And then you just watch it continue to get longer and longer as it goes on. Junior Baker, The Righteous Faker, issue 1 from Image Comics. This is another one of those like really, really crazy stories. It's about a guy who is a journalist, but kind of for one of those sensationalist, like only reports on supernatural stories. Like at one point they're like, oh, we have a story about a lake that glows, and he's like, I guess that's me, I gotta go do it. And so he has been determined to investigate this mission of these people who are occults that keep kind of destroying all kinds of churches. They keep destroying people, all these terrible things that they do. And he's like, they're ghosts essentially, or demons, and I want to find them, and nobody takes him seriously. And so he keeps getting assigned to all these other things. And the whole time he's like, I want to go back and I want to investigate that. Meanwhile, he has started seeing this ethereal being that is appearing to him, and he's like, I don't know if it's real or if I'm dreaming it, and it's kind of just really messing with his mind. And so we've got so many weird, crazy, supernatural, esoteric, like crazy experiences happening in this book, and the artwork really, really leads into that. So if you are looking for a really good story about somebody who is trying to figure out if the truth is out there, and might be losing it at the same time, and it has a very Martin Simmons style art to it, this is going to be a great one to pick up and jump into, since that is the first issue. Jack Kirby's Star Warriors. This is the whole thing. It's a one-shot, and it's from Image Comics. This is really, really cool because this was actually done. It was the story of Adam Star, and it was done by Jack Kirby when he was 22 and brand new in comics. This was actually the very first comic he signed as Jack Kirby. And then the publisher removed the creator credit when the issues were printed. There are 3 issues in here, and they each appeared inside of another story. And he drew, wrote, inked, and lettered the story at the time. But this has been given essentially the grand design treatment by Tom Scioli. And so we're going to see that Tom Scioli modernization, pulpy style art that he does on those grand design books for it. And you are going to get issues 1, 2, and 3 of the story of Adam Star and his experience like in space and underwater, and just like classic pulp hero fun, but done in Jack Kirby style. And this is really cool because this is Jack was doing this book and it wasn't really working, so he ended up leaving, and right after that is when he teamed up with Joe Simon and went on to create comic book history, if you are. But if you've never seen Adam Star and the Solar Legion, this is kind of one of the easy ways to get your hands on something like that and actually get the recognition for Jack Kirby that he deserves for these Star Warriors. And who doesn't love this Tom Scioli redoings of books? All right, we got some picks of the week going on here. First up, we've got Grimm issue 13 from Boom Studios. This is kind of a segue, like separation from the Grimm story. We kind of dropped all of our characters and we've moved on to one particular character backstory. And so if you have read Grimm, you know that we had a character who has always felt really bad about why he's dead, and just has felt really tragic. And over the course of the Grimm series, he's been pulled back into hell and is kind of suffering from the choices he made. And now we're going to find out what those choices were. And this was really a beautifully done story of him and his partner, and them being, you know, about like the goal of him was, you know, he always wanted to be this writer and he wanted to be a playwright, and he was dating a man who was an actor, and he is just so focused on his writing that he doesn't even know when his partner gets extremely sick, and he doesn't notice the kind of decline of his partner. And then by the time he does, it's just, is it too late? Is it too impossible to save him? Is it too impossible to save them? It's an absolutely tragic story, but because it does open with these monologues from plays that perfectly parallel with it, the writing on this was just fantastic. Stephanie Phillips nailed it with this issue. If you haven't read Grimm, there are trade paperbacks for Volume 1. You can check them out. It's such a fun story about a girl who finds out that she is a Grim Reaper, and she's now kind of in charge of saving whether or not the world is going to go to hell, literally, or not, because nobody can die because the Grim Reapers are having problems. And while she's trying to figure out that, I love this side story that just completely disconnects us for a minute and shows us this emotional journey of somebody. And speaking of emotional journeys, Nocterra, issue 16 from Image Comics, and this is the end. This is the end of Nocterra, and this is the book that made me cry this week. I feel like there's one comic every week, but I'm like, this book made me cry. It was amazing. If you've read Nocterra, or if you haven't, Nocterra is the story about our world being cast into darkness when the sun is suddenly lost to us, and people who are exposed to that darkness kind of turn into these wraith monsters that come after you. They're called shades. And we have been, in this volume of the story, we've been following M's point of view, which is a young boy who has been with his sister trying to battle against all this darkness. And over the course of this volume, we've been following him as they do the scientific method, essentially, of what they are trying to figure out on the way to save it. And so they're balancing the scientific method of the actual science they're doing and M's backstory of trying to find his original birth mother and how that worked out for him. And in this issue, he talks about the last step of his scientific method is the because stage, and how we do the things because we want to say we do the things because of the science, but in reality we're doing them because of the past and because of the present and because of the future. And it just kind of talks about how when there's something that you really want and all of the work that you do towards it, and you just don't think it's going to work, and he goes through all the reasons why it's like, this is why it's not going to work, and this is why it's okay that it doesn't work. And then it's like, but what if it did work? And what if people did actually notice the work that you've been doing? And what if the world was, impressed by what you were trying to accomplish? And what if just this once, like, you could be a hero? And it just made me cry so much, because it was so beautifully done. And of course, that's not surprising. Scott Snyder loves to make me cry especially in his indie books, and this was no exception. I kind of just want to take all of the because moments out and just like put them on a tapestry or something, because it was such a beautiful story woven through the actual story, but also a great wrap up to Nocterra. So if you haven't read it yet, it's over. You can grab it all at one time. Rare Flavors, issue 1 from Boom Studios, and this is brought to us by our team that gave us the mini deaths of Layla Starr, Ram V, and Felipe Andrade. So I'm not really surprised that this is here, but honestly, part of it is here because I blame Matt, because Matt has been on a food manga kick, and all of the exciting stories he tells me from that really fell into this story as well. And it honestly also feels like that adult Studio Ghibli kind of moment for me too. But this is the story of a man who wants to create a documentary of all of the rare flavors that he encounters. And part of that is the many foods that he eats, and part of that is the people that he meets along the way with them. And so he is meeting with a documentarian that he's like, I want you to be the person to do it. I know you don't make films anymore, but I want to hire you to do this. And they meet at a tea house, tea stand, I should say. And he's like, I want to see if I can find one of the pages. Yeah, he's like, I want to tell you about this tea. And then it actually has like all of the information about like the history of that tea. And then over the course of like the next 5 pages, like interspersed with them talking, is the recipe for how to make this man's tea. But it wouldn't be Ram V if it was just that simple and straightforward. And so there is kind of this twist that's coming to our story, and this nice little supernatural element that's going to come into play somehow, which we don't know what that is, but we know there's something that they keep hinting about, and we don't know what it is. We're going to find out. But this book has already started off on a great note, and I cannot wait to see where this goes from here. So check it out. And then lastly, for picks of the week, the complete edition of Know Your Station is out from Boom Studios. I loved this book in every single issue, and I'm so glad it's out. It is done by the writer of Eat the Rich and the artist of True Cult, which were two books that I absolutely loved when they were coming out. So you put those two together and you build a wonderful team for a great book. And this is all about a woman. I'm not going to crack the spine, so I'm not going to open it up too far. But it's all about a woman who is the essentially community liaison, a guest relations person on a space station. And on one of the days, on the very first couple of pages, we find out that somebody has been murdered in a very, very graphic way, and she's trying to keep it under wraps but also solve the case. And we learn over the course of the book that, you know, we never know who we can trust, and that includes ourselves, and things get crazy as the story goes on. And it is an absolutely wonderful detective story from somebody who is not supposed to be a detective, so it's really cool whodunit kind of experience. You should definitely check it out. And also you should read Eat the Rich and True Cult because they're both also phenomenal books. We've got a lot of other books in stock. I'm going to run through real fast. What If Dark Carnage. This is a one-shot on the What If Dark series that is happening right now. The Witcher, Wild Animals, issue 1 for you Witcher fans. There are always Witcher comics. You should ask about them at your LCS. The Walking Dead Deluxe, issue 71. This is part of the reprint of The Walking Dead in color for the 20th anniversary of The Walking Dead. The Vigil, issue 5. This has been a fan favorite series here, and I just love that cover. Time Before Time, issue 27. Rivers of London, Here Be Dragons, issue 3. Yes, 3 from Titan Comics. I can't believe we're already at issue 3. Frank Miller's Ronin book 2 is on issue 4 right now. So those of you Ronin fans, it's kind of continued if you didn't know. Money Shot comes again, issue 4 from Vault Comics. Dune, House of Harkonnen, issue 9. Cult of Carnage Misery, issue 5. Alpha Flight, issue 2. It's so crazy that Alpha Flight is back and is a part of your Fall of X, so don't miss it. Dark X-Men, issue 2, also part of your Fall of X storyline. X-Men, issue 26. Wolverine, issue 37, also part of the Fall of X. Wolverine vs. Predator also came out this week, but I'm out of it, but if you didn't get that, you should. Death of the Venomverse, issue 4, with another new symbiote kid. Dawn of DC's Titans, issue 3. Star Wars Dark Droids is still going on. We've got the D Squad. This is, I believe, a one-shot for that title. Uncanny Spider-Man, issue 1. What if Nightcrawler was Spider-Man, essentially? Amazing Spider-Man, issue 34. Catwoman, issue 57, sorry. Uncanny Avengers, issue 2. We've got Batman Superman's World Finest, issue, what are we on now? 19, issue 19. And we've got this Nick Cage variant, Nick Cage Superman variant, which was a fan favorite this week. We've got Deadpool Batter Blood, issue 4. We've got Green Lantern War Journal, issue 1. Guardians of the Galaxy hits issue 6 this week. We've got Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, issue 3. Ooh, and we've got a story from Gail Simone and Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips of That Texas Blood have a story together in here. And then Junie Baugh has a story. What a great lineup. Hot Girl, issue 3 of 6 as part of your Dawn of DC. Loki, issue 4. Strange Academy, Moon Knight one-shot. Everybody's at the Strange Academy right now. I don't know what's going down, but it's going to get crazy. Nightwing, issue 106. Cyborg, issue 3. Yes, issue 3. And that really cool orange cover. We don't see enough orange. I think this is awesome. Oh, this is Superman out this week, and I love this acetate cover. It's so cool. And then also out this week, we have the return of Captain America, this time from J. Michael Straczynski. And we've got an all-new Wonder Woman launched from Tom King. So all you Tom King fans, he is on Wonder Woman now. So make sure you grab that because you are not going to want to miss it. We also have some trade paperbacks. Behold Behemoth is out from Boom Studios. This is the complete collection. Tate Bromble, who does House of Slaughter, is on this, and Nick Robles, who does the art on this, does some really great kaiju moments because this is all about a social worker who ends up protecting a young girl and the monsters within them. Ice Cream Man Volume 9, and again with Ice Cream Man, no?
That's so far.
Oh, I was like, no, I thought it was. Yeah, Ice Cream Man Volume 9. This is issues 33 through 36. As always with Ice Cream Man, it is an anthology, so you can pick up whichever issues you want. And yes, I cannot believe we have 9 volumes of Ice Cream Man. Blue Book Volume 1, already out. This is your complete 1 through 5 of Blue Book, and this true stories, or based on true stories, of people who have had alien encounters throughout history, both in America and around the world. With the main story, there's the backup stories have the around the world stories. There is one from St. Pete's in there, but the main story does focus on the Blue Book story of the couple who were the #1 like alien invasion in American history.
I was really sad to see that the backup stories weren't about aliens. More just about strange events.
Strange events.
Rather than aliens.
Yeah.
Where the first story is about the original alien encounter in America, and the rest of the book is just strange things that happen. They're X-Files.
Yeah, it's the X-Files.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the first one's the true story.
And we just rewatched X-Files, episode 1. I said issue 1. No. Episode 1, and we were talking about how many parallels they pulled from that for episode 1 from this story, the actual story of that couple in there. And it's crazy to me because you can like read like the documents on that and the Tynion comic like back to back, and it's weird how like accurate like Tynion's story of that is like just an adaptation of that documentation. And then we've got Creepy Volume 2. I have so many people who ask me all the time if we have Creepy comics, so I was like, you know what? We're gonna get this since it's out this week, and you can get all of that crazy good horror that you're all looking for. These were actually, this has a foreword from Roy Thomas in it, which is cool. But yeah, so for those who are looking for some good horror to get you in the mood for spooky season, this is from the Dark Horse Archives of Creepy. Check it out. That's what we got this week. Again, if you didn't watch at the beginning and you're watching right now, know that we are not open on Friday the 29th because we will be at the TEDx Bradenton event where I will be speaking. Until then, we will, of course, see you on Wednesday in the shop for New Comic Books Day. And we hope that you have a wonderful week full of all of the most amazing books and experiences. Until we see you, happy reading, everyone. Good night and goodbye.